Welcome to a Community Partners interview where we explore the organizations, opportunities, and resources that look to make change in our daily lives. I'm your host, Nafisah Anif, and you're listening to Voices for Ability Radio, all abilities, all the time. Today, I'm joined by Haley Flaro, the Executive Director for Ability New Brunswick Incorporated. Ability New Brunswick Incorporated roots come from the Canadian Paraplegic Association, CPA. The CPA was founded in 1945 by John Council, who was injured by a bullet to the spine. Council and other World War II veterans with spinal cord injuries were determined not to spend their life in hospital. Their efforts resulted in improved medication and rehabilitation services, better pension, and increased awareness of their abilities and potential. In 2011, they changed their name and rebranded to Ability New Brunswick to better reflect the people they represent. Ability New Brunswick is an autonomous, community-based, provincial, non-profit organization governed by a volunteer board of directors. Thank you so much for joining us today, Haley.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit more about you and what inspired you to work at Ability New Brunswick Incorporated and why work with individuals with disabilities.
Thank you. So I grew up with a mom that actually lived with a neurological condition. So working with individuals with a mobility disability and their families and communities around Division for accessible communities, inclusive communities, great disability supports in communities has always been really important to me because while I don't have lived experience, I always say I lived alongside. I have lived alongside experience, and that really that always impacted me. And for close to 20 years now, I've been working with Ability New Brunswick, and every day I wear my mom on my sleeve with me, although she's passed on now. It's just I always feel that if we can make a difference for one individual or one family every day, then that's a really good day in New Brunswick.
That's a really inspiring story. Thank you for sharing that. And tell me, what is Ability New Brunswick all about? How do you help people?
Well, we have one of those formal mission statements around empowering independence and mobility. But what we're really about is helping people with a mobility disability reach their goals for independence, community participation, and that includes goals in areas like transportation, recreation, active living, education, employment, health goals, rehabilitation goals, financial support goals. So really, we're there to be guides and supports. We have a variety of programs like peer mentorship, where you can be connected with someone who's been there and lived it. What we're really trying to do is have impact and help address the system barriers that exist out there for people.
That's wonderful. And while doing my research on your website, I saw something called the Transition New Brunswick. Can you tell me what the Transition New Brunswick entails?
Excellent. So all of our programs have been co-designed with our service participants with a mobility disability. And for years, we had community-based rehabilitation counseling, which we still do for adults. But youth that we worked with were telling us that they wanted, personal guides, personal supports that could be focused on youth, work with youth to help them with their community goals, their education goals, employment goals. And so transition planners work with youth under the age of 30 to help reach whatever those goals are. Maybe it starts with housing and transportation. Maybe it starts with finding the right equipment or assistive technology. And then maybe it progresses to looking at their transition out of high school and what life looks like next, and what college they might want to go to, or what training or what job. So the transition planners work one-on-one as a personal guide. They're at kitchen tables, they're in high schools, they're at the rehab unit with them. They're really there to be someone they can count on to help know resources available for youth and to help them to implement their own personal plan.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And can you tell me what the vehicle retrofit program is all about?
Excellent. You're talking about all the programs I love, but I guess I
Oh,
love all
me
eight of
too. I
them.
love the sound of that.
The New Brunswick Vehicle Retrofit Program is a program that we deliver in partnership with the New Brunswick Department of Social Development. They transferred delivery of the program to us years ago because as a nonprofit, we're more nimble, we can implement it faster, and we can get money out the door faster. And we can also, as a community nonprofit, accept donations to it, which helps us do more and stretch our dollars. So that program funds 80% up to $8,000 of the cost of retrofits to vehicles. Maybe it's hand controls, maybe it's a contribution to a cost of attorney seat, maybe it's a lift, maybe it's ramping system into a van, maybe it's a scooter lift, maybe it is a specialized car seat for a child with complex disabilities. So while we know that a full van conversion can be 40, $50,000, it certainly doesn't fund enough. It's quite a good program for those needing things like specialized seating and hand controls, but it's only up to $8,000, but it's something. We know that living with a disability adds up. There's a lack of programs for those added costs of disabilities like vehicle retrofit costs. So we're really proud and pleased to be able to help facilitate some funding towards those costs.
Yeah, it definitely can be very stressful, especially after any kind of injury, any kind of surgery that causes rehabilitative measures to be put in place. Retrofitting vehicles, retrofitting homes are usually the expenses that get put on the back burner because there's so little support out there for them in general.
Agree. It's definitely one of those added costs, related to systems and accessibility of communities, et cetera.
Of course, of course. And are there any restrictions to the services at Ability New Brunswick, such as age, disability type, caregivers, or family members only, things of that nature?
That's a great question because we strive to be really different than traditional systems. So there's no income test for our service. What you have in the bank, what you may have, may not have. Really, if you live with a mobility condition that you articulate impacts your ability to move, even short distances, whether you were born with it, acquired it later in life, whether it's you live with spinal cord injury or MS or stroke or spina bifida or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or arthritis, you're welcome to be referred, self-referred to our service, referred by a service provider, and we will go to your kitchen table, your rehab unit, and start working with you. So we don't require medical proof. We want to remove those roadblocks to service it.
That is so beneficial for people these days because I'm sure many people sometimes feel that, oh, that I have to have a certain amount of money, I have to have some certain type of status in society before I can actually get some help from any of these organizations. So having that model of, you know, people first, not what they can bring is really so important. And I wish more organizations would adopt that. So without using any names, can you share a success story with me? What supports were put in place when someone asked for help?
Oh, I love that question. And one of the things I love about our internal operations here is we have a Microsoft Teams success story feed. So as someone that's in a largely, oversight role, I get to see the stories every day coming through on that feed. And so, some of the success stories lately were, someone that was going to have to give up their apartment and be homeless because they couldn't afford the rent on their extended benefits income from our province. And we were able to work with the government of New Brunswick to establish a direct to tenant benefit for people with a disability. And within 10, within 10 working days, we were able to get their current unit subsidized to free up money for food, over the counter medications, all those extra disability costs for that individual. So we work really hard not only to find programs for people, but also to work with government to establish creative programs to help people with a disability. So that's certainly a story. Or the child that all of a sudden, through our adapted sport and recreation equipment loan service, who the family couldn't afford a tricycle for this child with a mobility disability to learn to bike, was able to borrow, a $3,000 child tricycle, and the smile on that child's face when they were able to have their first bike ride was just immeasurable. That program really takes the cost of costly sport and recreation equipment that's often out of reach for people, and helps give free access to loans to get active. So that was another story. Or just this week, one of our service participants got into a college program, and we were able to help them apply to our Paul C.J. LeBlanc bursary that helps students with a mobility disability with their post-secondary education costs. And that's really going to help alleviate some of the extra disability systems related costs, such as lack of accessible transportation and different assistive devices things. So that we see the impact every day of helping people get a hand up and navigate the complex programs and services that they need to have more equity in life.
That's perfect. I love to hear inspiring stories like this. I really do. What is the one thing that you see happening over and over again to individuals with disabilities that shouldn't be happening, and how do we stop it?
I have to say that some days I think we take significant advances in accessibility, but I still see built environment accessibility, website accessibility, all of those areas taking back steps. I recently, our government in New Brunswick made a significant investment in a tourism site an outdoor tourism site that doesn't have any accessible features. And I wonder how, in today's age, do we continue to exclude people with my population, people with a mobility disability. It applies to vision loss too with this particular site. How do we continue to exclude people and say, well, we'll get to it at some point when early good universal design from the onset costs less. It's good for business because more people will access the site. So we really need to get better regulatory standards. And, if public money is going into something, then it needs to be universal designed. We can't afford to be modifying things after the fact and excluding people from the onset. So we still have a lot of work to do in New Brunswick and Canada around accessibility.
Yeah, it truly is very unfortunate when you see this kind of thing happening from the top down. You would expect it to see it from the bottom up, but when that behavior comes from the government itself, it really it really, instead of going forward, it really puts you 10 steps back.
I agree, and I'm sure you've talked on your show about ableism, and it's everywhere, and that's without walking a mile in someone's shoes, or using a rollator, or having a family member that's faced these barriers. People don't think about it, and they think about it as an afterthought, and it's not just about the right thing to do. It's about creating whole, inclusive communities. It's good for business because there's tourism markets. There's people we work with that want to be able to access all the spaces and places and tourism events we have. And it's just, yeah, it's just good business. So it's good for tourism, it's good for communities. I could go on and on. So we need to have more rigorous regulations because optional standards aren't working anymore.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that point, and I I've always said this, that in regards to accessibility, people really don't know what the challenges related to accessibility are until they are unfortunately facing facing them or facing the same kind of disability itself. And it's really a sad place to be in, especially now in the 21st century.
I absolutely agree. And, there's still so much assumption and judgment. And, we have an epidemic of ableism. It's interesting. I always test power door openers, and you should see the looks I get of people thinking I'm misusing them. But growing up and remembering trying to help my mom maneuver through heavy doors and door openers that were broke, like I remember bawling because I felt so helpless. And she should have been able to do this independently if the button was working, right? If the door was working. And so I have a habit where I test power door openers, because if they're not working, I'll go up to the desk and say, listen, your power door isn't working. And please, look into this because someone's going to need it, likely in a few minutes. And so I get odd looks, like I'm misusing them, but what I'm doing is actually testing them. So the next person that needs it will be able to.
Yeah, exactly. It's more of us need to take these things into account, and it could be something as simple as, like you said, the automatic door opener. I myself have faced many situations where those things don't work, and the worst one, it's not even the door opener itself, but it's more like an automatic revolving door. And as someone who cannot see at all, trying to go through that door, I'm actually terrified of it because the manual revolving door, I can at least feel the position of that door and I'm supposed to turn with it. But this one, as soon as you touch it, it stops. So there's no way, and you can't hear the direction that it's really turning because it's just turning. That's all it's doing.
And that can be terrifying.
It really is terrifying. It's awful.
I
I
know I don't
never
live I don't know I know I don't live with vision loss, but I can imagine that's terrifying. You're waiting for it to bump you or for it to like it's I can imagine what that does to your path finding and your yeah, just your senses, right?
yeah,
And they're often
well,
very loud. And
they
so
are loud, and that's actually the reason why I never go through them on my own as, you know, childish as that might sound, but I just don't go through them because they are a real safety hazard.
they are I agree. I've been talking a lot about roundabouts in community that are a safety hazard for
Oh,
those with
those are even worse.
mobility issues, vision loss, because they actually encourage the non-stoppage of traffic. There, people go really fast around them, and they often don't have sidewalks or curb cuts or marked crosswalks for safe passageway or audio crosswalks. So that's another issue. And I have severe tendonitis in my right arm, and I hate doorknobs. Like I just do. The staff got me a shirt that says "Just say no to knobs," because the lever handle is so much more easier for me to use with my wrist or my elbow because it actually creates repetitive injury for me and pain. And so, but there's so many simple things that can be done, but good design, roundabouts became really popular without consulting with people with a disability.
Of course, they sure did. They sure did. So, are there any events coming up for Ability New Brunswick Incorporated?
Not any specific events. We are a provincial organization. Our farthest service participants about 7 hours away. But if anyone's on social media out there, our Facebook pages, we do hold various peer mentorship events, including online events, and always have interesting guest speakers. Sometimes it's on pain, sometimes it's on pain management or grief, or we have one coming up with one of our mentors that with a quadriplegia that's going to talk about his experience in adapting his wood shop. So I shouldn't say there's no events. Our peer mentorship program has various events, and if you follow the Ability and Be Peer Mentorship social media pages, you can tune into those.
Great. Wonderful. And if someone wanted to become a member or volunteer with Ability New Brunswick Incorporated, what's the process for joining as a member or joining as a volunteer?
I would certainly encourage people to log into abilitymb.ca. We just soft launched our new website, and it talks about our various programs and how you can get connected to those programs. So, if you see yourself in any of those programs, there is contact information, our toll free line, our info at abilitymb.ca email to be able to get connected with the right program. And we definitely use volunteers to help with equipment maintenance, sometimes office activities, our board of directors, our peer mentorship programs. So there's various ways people can get involved. And we are a nonprofit. 30% of our budget relies on fundraised dollars. I'm sure you talk to a lot of charitable nonprofits. So any type of hands-on help is so appreciated. And when we need things other than money, we often use our social media channels to ask for things to help people give people a hand up. Just like we often, need things. We had a senior that really loved to knit but couldn't afford knitting supplies, and we put a call out. And the next thing you know, we had all kinds of yarn and knitting supplies. So we often use our social media channels for people that are just looking to follow those things and maybe be able to have something that could help give someone a hand up.
That's wonderful. Wow. Yeah. Sometimes you would be surprised at the littlest initiatives that the community, the larger community come together to support.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You talked about stories. We had a senior that was returning home after her rehabilitation, and there was a lot of costs, the new ramping, grab bars in the bathroom, things that insurance wouldn't cover. And she loved to bake for her family and friends every year at Christmas. And there just wasn't enough money for baking supplies. The cost of chocolate chips is wild right now. And
for sure.
we put a call out, and the number of people that came forward to give her baking supplies, and she cooked all that holiday season as a thank you to everyone that helped in her rehabilitation. They all got their Christmas baking and then some. So it was just a really nice story of, because her budget got strained through the added disability related support costs, that people came forward to help her do something she loved to do, and she wound up using it to give back to others. So I really love that story.
Oh, me too. I wish I was around to get some of those baked goods myself.
Well, she may have given us some, and I may have eaten them. So, yeah, in New Brunswick, there's nothing like nothing like thanking someone or helping someone by giving them some food.
This is very true. I experienced that myself when I visited New Brunswick quite a few years ago, but
Love it.
yes, that is very true. What is the one thing everyone needs to know about Ability New Brunswick Incorporated?
The one thing you need to know is that Ability New Brunswick is, we really live our values here. We have very unique values as an organization. The value of ability is something that's in our value statements, and recognizing people's abilities and potential. And we don't just say that, we live it. We always are looking at ensuring that abilities go first. Passion is another one of our values, and this team is so passionate. I get to do these media interviews, but really I'm just representing the work that they all do every day in a quiet, humble way to help people reach some pretty important goals. That it has nothing to do with the individual's disability. It has to do with the barriers that our system places in our communities. So I think knowing about what our values are and the fact that we are there to help, and we get to do this work. One of my colleagues said that to me recently, and it really stuck with me that we're not doing this work. We get to do this work. We're very privileged to have the trust of the people we work with.
It's so wonderful to hear the commitment from everyone involved with Ability New Brunswick Incorporated, and even more so knowing that you're all volunteers. And just to be able to make that difference in someone else's life, it really can mean the world.
I agree. While we have paid staff, the amount of volunteer work that goes into this from the community, from our staff, because they care so deeply, is just immeasurable.
It sure is. If listeners are looking for more information, how can they reach out to you?
Well, I'd love people to go to abilitymb.ca to check out our new website. There's so many stories on there where you can read stories that you might identify with and might see how our services can help. And so that's a really great place to start, would be on our website. But for those that may not have web access all the time or even anytime, we have a toll-free number, 1-866-462-9555, that people can call, and we'll make sure we still have someone that picks up the phone live every day. That seems to be a rarity these days, but that's something we feel really important about. So many of us get the phone game with systems, and we don't want to play the phone game here.
That is wonderful to hear. And I definitely agree about the phone system, just being able to talk to a real person and even just to even just to know that someone else out there understands, empathizes, is willing to support you with whatever difficulty you might be facing, whatever way you need help. That is something definitely to brighten someone's day,
I agree.
for sure. Well, Haley, we are out of time. This concludes another Community Partners interview. Let's care, let's share, because we've all been there. I'm your host, Nafisah Anif, signing off until next time.